Hello, dear student. We had finished with the two chapter in chemistry. Today, we are going to start third chapter, metals and non-metals. This is one of the easy chapter as you have already studied these in your lower classes. You have also done with the physical and chemical properties of metals and non-metals. In the ninth class, you have learnt about various elements. There are about 118 elements known. 94 of the elements occur in the earth crust, while the remaining 24 elements are synthetic elements. Elements are classified as metals and non-metals on the basis of their properties. Think of some uses of metals and non-metals in your daily life. How are the properties of metals and non-metals related to the uses of these elements? Let us look at some of these properties in details. We are going to start with physical properties of metals and will compare it with the physical properties of non-metal. Let us start with the first property, luster. All metals are having shiny surface in their pure state. This property is called metallic luster. There are large number of metals which we are using in our daily life in the form of utensils or in the form of jewelries like gold and silver, and you have noticed how shiny appearance they are having. If you will compare this property with the non-metals, you will find that metals show shiny appearance but non-metals do not. Exceptions are always there. Though non-metal is non-lustrous, but iodine is an exception. Being a non-metal, it is having shiny appearance. Apart from iodine, graphite, a non-metal, it is one of the form of carbon, also show shiny appearance. Diamond, another form of carbon, is a non-metal, but it does not have the shiny appearance. It only reflects the light. Let us now study the next property, that is hardness. You can collect some of the metals from your surrounding like iron piece, copper, aluminium and try to cut these metal with a sharp knife. What you will observe? You will notice that they are not able to cut down as they are hard. The hardness varies from metal to metal, while non-metals do not possess such hardness. Exception in metals. There are some metals which you will find are soft and can be easily cut with the knife. Alkali metals like lithium, sodium, potassium, etc., are so soft that they can be cut with a knife. They even possess low density and have low melting point. Carbon is a non-metal that can exist in different forms. Diamond and allotrope, that is one of the form of carbon, is the hardest natural substance known. Let us now discuss the third physical properties of metal and compare it with the non-metal. Malleability. Some metals can be beaten into thin sheet. This property is called malleability. You can take some pieces of iron, zinc, lead and copper. Place any one of the metal on the block of iron and strike it 4 or 5 times with hammer. What do you observe? You can repeat this experiment with metals and with non-metals. You will notice that the metals can be beaten up into thin sheet, while the non-metals do not show such malleability. Gold and silver considered to be the most malleable metals. Let us now discuss another physical property, ductility. The ability of metals to be drawn into thin wire is called ductility. Gold is the most ductile metals. It can be drawn into wires of about 2 kilometers length from 1 gram of it. It is because of their malleability and ductility that metals can be given different shapes according to our needs. Non-metals, on the other hand, are neither malleable nor ductile. Here you can see some metals that we are using in our day-to-day life in various forms, and they are considered to be the ductile metals. Gold is the most ductile, followed by silver, aluminium, copper, etc. Steel is an alloy of iron. Because of its ductility, it is used for making utensils. Nonmetals are very brittle and cannot be rolled into wires or can be drawn into sheet. Let us now discuss the fifth property of metals, and we can compare it with the non-metals, that is conductivity. Metals are considered to be the good conductors of heat and electricity, while the non-metals are generally bad conductors of heat and electricity. To understand the conductivity of heat and electricity, let us discuss the activity given in your book, Activity 3.5 and 3.6. And let us see some examples of metals which are good conductors of heat and electricity. Take any of the metal wire. Let us take here aluminium, or you can also take copper wire, and clamp this wire on a stand as you can see in the figure. Fix a pin to the free end of the wire using the wax. Now, what we are going to do, heat the wire with a spirit lamp, or you can use burner also. We will place it near where it is clamped. What do we observe? As the rod heats up, the nail drops down. This is because the heat melt the wax which travels from the hot end of the metal wire or rod to the cold end by conduction. This experiment shows that metals are good conductors of heat. Copper, aluminium, silvers are considered as a good conductors of heat. Because of this property of metal, we use the metal's utensil for cooking the food. Now let us see another conductivity, that is electrical conductivity. The ability of the metal to let electricity pass through it is called electrical conductivity. Let us understand this with the help of the activity given in your book. Set up an electric circuit as shown in this figure. For this we have to take battery, bulb, switch, clips and metal wire, and we have to arrange this in the form of an electric circuit. Now place the metal to be tested in the circuit between the terminals A and B as shown in this figure. Now observe what happens when you switch on the circuit. Does the bulb glow? And what does this indicate? When we will place the metal between the two terminals A and B, the bulb will glow. This is because metals are generally good conductors of electricity. They will carry the current and will pass on between the two terminals A and B, and in this case, the bulb will glow up. Silver is considered to be the best conductor of electricity. Copper is a good conductor of electricity. We prefer copper to use in our electric current as it is cheaper than the silver. Have you noticed that the wires which carry the current in our homes have a coating of PVC, that is polyvinyl chloride, or a rubber like material? Why it is so? They are the bad conductors of electricity and thus protect us from electric shock. Non-metals are generally bad conductors of electricity, but exception is always there. Graphite, a form of carbon which is a non-metal, is a good conductor of electricity. Now let us see another property of metal and compare it with that of non-metal. Sonorous, that is, they produce the ringing sound. The ability of metal to produce a particular sound when it is tapped on a hard surface is termed as sonority. Have you seen the bell at the religious places? The bells are mostly made up of alloys. Alloys, as you have studied in the ninth class, is a homogeneous mixture of two or more than two metals with metals or metals with non metals. They are made up of the alloys like bronze, which is an alloy of copper and tin, or of brass, which is an alloy of copper and zinc. Non-metals are generally non-sonorous. They do not produce any ringing sound. Now let us study another property of metals and compare it with the non-metal. Physical state. Mostly all the metal exist in the solid state except mercury, which is a metal but it exists in the liquid form at room temperature. As they exist in the solid form, metals are generally hard, while non-metal exist in two of the three states solid, liquid, and gas at the room temperature. They mostly are found in the gaseous form like oxygen, nitrogen, etc. Carbon, a non-metal, exists in the solid form. Bromine is the only non-metal which exists in the liquid form. Let us now see another property, melting and boiling point. Melting and boiling point of metal is usually high. Tungsten is a metal which possesses very high melting and boiling point. You can see here the melting and the boiling point of tungsten. As tungsten is having a very high melting point. It is used in making the filament of electric bulb. While mercury is a metal which has low melting point. Children, you are aware of the use of mercury in the thermometer. Gallium and cesium, being a metal, have very low melting point. This is an exception. These two metals will melt if you will keep them on your palm. Let us now see another properties of elements, density. Metal possess high density as compared to the non-metals. Lithium is a metal which have low density. If we compare the density of metals with that of the non-metals, non-metals possess low density than metals. There are certain elements which show the properties of both metals and non-metals. These elements are called metalloids or semi-metals. You can see here the periodic table. The encircled part are the elements called as metalloids. Most metalloids have an appearance that is similar to metals. They are less conductive than metals. Metalloids are more brittle than metals. They have the non metallic chemical properties in general. Let us now see some examples of metalloids. As you can see here in this figure, boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, tellurium are the examples of metalloids. Let us now revise the properties of metals and non-metal. Luster, that is metallic shine. All metals have luster, but non-metals do not have. Exceptions are there. Iodine and graphite show luster. Hardness. Metals are hard except sodium and potassium. They are soft and can be cut with the knife. Non-metals are not hard except diamond, which is the hardest substance known. Malleability, the property due to which a substance can be beaten into sheet. Metals are highly malleable except zinc, antimony, and arsenic, while non metals are non malleable. Metals are good conductors of heat and electricity, while non metals are poor conductors of heat and electricity, except graphite and gas carbon. State, mostly metal exist in the solid state, except mercury and gallium, which exist in the liquid state, while non-metals exist in the solid and gaseous form. Only bromine is a non-metal which exists in the liquid form. Density, metals have high density except sodium and potassium. Non-metals have low density except diamond, whose density is very high. So I hope children you have understood physical properties of metals and non-metal with example and exceptions. Here, as we have completed with the physical properties of metals and non-metals, in the next video, we will be discussing the chemical properties of metals and non matters. Thank you and take care of yourself.